Welcome, folks. I'm going to introduce, first of all, Jennifer Gigi Ferguson, running for U.S. Senate as an independent. As much as up.
A lot of people ask me, why am I running for U.S. Senate and why am I running as an independent? The same fight my grandmother was fighting when I was a little girl, the same fight my cousins went to jail for, the same fight that I was in the busing program as a black child and sent into white schools because they didn't want to give equal education to the kids in the poor black communities. And civil rights and all of those issues are the issues that JFK was killed for, MLK was killed for, and what we were fighting for then for blacks, today we're fighting for everyone, the 98%. And so because I've been going through this and I understand it, and I've done so much work in our community, volunteer work and working in our communities for over 30, 40 years as a small business owner, chemical dependency counselor, marriage and family therapist, volunteer in the school district, just a ton. I feel, and having to sit on boards where we've had to look at information and make really strong decisions on families and what social workers needed to do to help families to become reunited, and we didn't have a lot of time to make those decisions. And though everything that I've experienced, losing my mother to cancer before I was 7.5, losing a baby brother before I was 5, being partially homeless after my mother died, all of these things helps me to understand the 98% because I am part of the 98%. And you know, my husband's military, so a lot of people ask me, because you come from 6 generations of military, does that mean you are for our military and the military industrial complex and all the wars? No, that's what makes me not want wars, because as the wife of a Vietnam veteran, as the mother of a son that served in Iraq, and as the mother of a son who just arrived back from South Korea, I understand the true cost of war. I understand. I also volunteered out at Madigan with our soldiers who had gone to Afghanistan and Iraq, and I gave 2,200 hours in less than 13 months as a therapist. So the real cost of war goes beyond just the physical of the soldiers. It goes into the families, it goes into the children, because I had secondary trauma after I left that job. What happens to the kids who are living with soldiers, who have PTSD that's undiagnosed or that's untreated? What happens to the wives in those cases? And so I am not for war for profit, and I'm very much entrenched in our environment, and I'm running as an independent because I don't want to be owned by a corporation, and I don't want to be owned by a party. I want to be owned by the citizens, and let the citizens, give me information on what they want. Because right now, about 35% of what citizens want gets passed. And about 35% of what citizens don't want gets passed. We need people who are going to go to the U.S. Congress, who are there to fight for the people, to fight for the environment, to fight for living wages, to fight for water, to fight for our young people to be able to have jobs, to fight for education so that our kids do more than fill in bubbles, but are able to think and to critically think and be prepared for the job market when they leave, or to go to a school and to be able to create jobs coming up in our next generations. And so that's my summary. Tyler?
Well, thanks, Gigi. Yeah, I'm Tyler. I'm running for U.S. House of Representatives, CD6, that's the Olympic Peninsula. Most of my platform is basically the Bernie Sanders platform of 2016, but really I'm running to carve out a space to have a voice for the people who are unrepresented in our country. You have this kind of base sector of the population, the Democrats and the Republicans that are arguably at least represented in name, at least in the letter behind the name, and the fact that the elected representatives don't actually adhere to the principles of those parties gets ignored most of the time. But my focus is on the other people who are completely unrepresented, people who never come to the polls because why bother? I'm not going to be represented. So I run as a progressive with the Washington Progressive Party, a offshoot of more recently Bernie Sanders' run for mayor of Burlington in 1981, and in the farther distant past, the Roosevelt era. And we stand for essentially all the same things that the Democrats stand for. The difference is that we intend to hold our elected officials accountable to those things, and that's really the big difference. Now, the fact that I'm running outside the party is a little deceptive to many because I'm actually pro-Dem-Enter. I believe that the Democratic Party has a lot of really great people on the ground, and I think it's only really rotten at the top. And I wholeheartedly support the PCOs who are running on the ground and the people who are trying to make it, actually reclaim it as the People's Party. I'm part of that. I'm doing that actively. But more importantly, I want to see civic engagement on an en masse level. We are a part of the system of checks and balances. The people's voice was always intended to be the last say, the check and balance for the executive branch, the legislative branch, and the judicial branch.
Yes.
But it's been lost, and the House of Representatives is where the people's voice was supposed to be expressed. Gigi's running for Senate, which is the whole state. The two senators represent the whole state and the interest of the whole state. Well, the House was where the individual people would filter their voices up and be the place where we, the people, would express our wishes. And for example, among other things, we're granted the sole power of impeachment. The way to check the president was solely vested in the House of Representatives. And our House is garbage, so we have an unchecked, out-of-control president. Anyway, so the platform that I speak of is universal health care. It is getting through college, not in debt, a living wage, all these things that are so just easy to get consensus upon in any room full of working class people. And I present to you with an option and opportunity to make some real change, with a vote or with actual civic engagement. And I invited my friend Franklin here to come and be crew on my ship and be involved on this idea that we really all do have a right to participate, and even if you're nomadic or transient or poor or have to work a job, you also should still be able to run for office and still get elected. You shouldn't have to be a millionaire to be able to get elected. And I make $17 an hour, barely make my bills every month, and don't have time to do this, but it needs to be done anyway.
Yeah, you shouldn't have to pay $1,740.
No, that's crazy, and it gets crazier the more you look at it. But I want to give some space to the others. Franklin's running in this district for PCO. Franklin Walbrown.
Franklin Walbrown from Ohio. I am now a transient individual here in this great state of Washington.
Nomadic. Sorry.
And I agree a lot with what you say, obviously. But I also, and I know you probably agree with me about taking things into the future and looking at like automation and artificial intelligence, and we're going through another revolution, a computerized revolution, where we're going to be losing lots of jobs, and we need to look and talk about like universal basic income, or maybe go take a step, baby step first as caregiver basic income, and we need definitely need to look out for those that are less fortunate than ourselves. That's what it's all about, is taking care of everyone. and especially those that don't have the opportunity to look out for themselves properly.
And I think part of that comes with living wages.
Yes.
And since the minimum wage has been stagnant
Right. You're
since
losing money.
1970, our dollar is now worth the same that it was in 1920. So we've actually gone backwards with the dollar. And if the living wage, if they're going to continue raising the cost of living adjustments and allowing the cost of everything to go up, then wages need to go up to match that.
I mean, if you think about it, if the wage doesn't go up every year, you're losing money.
Mhm.
And, you know, living wage is something I think that is very hard to define because it varies by state. But, you know, if you look at averages and like a third of your income, what is it, like $18? You need to make like $18 an hour.
Here it's like 23 to be able to
Yes.
survive.
Yeah,
Yeah.
23 an hour.
But if it kept up with corporate, you know, profits, it'd be like $30 an hour.
Yeah, California and parts of Seattle are like $32 an hour just to pay for a two-bedroom apartment.
Which is ridiculous.
Absolutely ridiculous.
So then we have the issue with, I can speak for minorities, especially black and brown men and poor white men. They're constantly being charged as felons. So they're in jail, and for the same crimes a lot of times, a white male that's not poor may get a misdemeanor. And
I interrupt for a sec. I want to point out just something real fast, both on your topic and your topic. So we've seen corporate Democrats sell us out on both of these topics and important votes just in the last 6 months. We're talking about Jenny Durkin and the Amazon head tax that was passed by the Seattle City Council, which was then appealed, like 2 weeks after they passed it. Why? Corporate pressure. Can't be doing that to Amazon. But $48 million was all that tax would have ended up being. And really, that's a drop in the bucket when you look at Seattle has the 4th growing economy in the country, yet we have the 3rd highest homeless population in the country.
Right.
And then exactly the same way with yours, we see how the Dems, vote and hurt the working class repeatedly. So what do you think is the answer? Is it?
I think people need to stop listening to what their elected officials say and look at how they vote. Because that's the problem.
Pandering is the problem.
You know, they tell the constituents what the constituents want to hear, but then they vote totally different. I know when I've been out and I'm pressured on questions, on why I'm running for U.S. Senate, and, I'll give, my answers, but then they start getting specific. Why are you running against Maria Cantwell? And that's the only way I will really go at that. And I'll ask, are you aware that she and Murray voted against being able to negotiate pharmaceuticals? And they're like, no, they didn't. I said, yes, they did. And Cory Booker as well.
Yeah.
And are you aware that they were for the TPP, no matter what the people in Washington said, they were still for the TPP. And that would have affected a lot of union jobs. And of our food and the safety of our food, it would have affected a whole lot. And so there's a lot of things going in there, but how we've gotten to where the black and brown men and poor white men are in prison, part of that is the 13th Amendment, which says slavery has been abolished except if you've been convicted of a crime.
Right.
So if they convict them of a crime, if they convict them of a felony, then they are caught in the system because no one's going to really hire them. And if no one's hiring them, then they keep going back into the
prison system.
That's right.
Right.
That people like Kamala Harris have stock in. So our own champions
Mm-hmm.
own stock in these.
And
Yeah.
the thing about the private prisons that a lot of people don't know is the private prisons actually can sue the states if the states do not give them enough prisoners to fill the contracts that they have. So a lot of people think, oh, the jobs are going overseas. The jobs are not going overseas. They're blaming the Hispanics for taking their jobs. These union jobs are not being taken by Hispanics. These union jobs that are labor jobs that used to be union labor jobs are in the prison system.
Paying prisoners $1 a day,
Right.
if that.
If that someday. And then you have the woman at home who's having to work 2 and 3 jobs
And they're forcing the people that are in the prison to also pay exorbitant amounts of money to make a phone call,
Right.
to buy
Oh,
the
yes,
shoes they
everything,
have to have,
everything, yeah.
their clothing, they
commissary.
don't have any money.
It's $15 to connect to one phone call with the prison. I know,
Yeah.
my baby brother just got out, I picked him up 3 months ago.
Now, I had a guy on the streets. I was at a food bank, and I was asking him to sign I-1600 and told him I was running for the U.S. Senate, and, you know, my platform, get rid of the private prisons. And he said, why would I want to vote for you if you're getting rid of the private prisons? Because of what they're doing. He said, well, I just got out of prison. So if you're voting to get rid of the private prisons, then you're taking away what makes my life easier in prison. They don't necessarily give us money, but we're able to make phone calls, we're able to get TVs, we're able to get all of these luxuries that they would have at home because they can't necessarily get paid, but they get these others. And I'm thinking, okay, our system is really messing things up.
Yes, institutionalizing a whole group of men. And I've
And
seen
women.
it, and women. I see it a lot in the young men around me that I know who've gone to prison. They almost fall into the cycle of
Right.
it's a safety. They don't grow while they're in there. There is no, push for betterment of oneself. I mean, they can seek
Well-
AA and do things like that in there, but when they come out, they almost like society is so bad and so scary that, hey, I can go back to this little safe place I have where I'm regimented, I'm on a routine.
And if you've ever seen
Cotton
Michael
Three
Moore's movie, Where to Invade Next, I believe it's Sweden that has a prison system that even felons, and even people who killed or murdered people, maximum is, I think, 15 years in prison, and it's an open prison. They're learning how to cook, they're learning skills,
Right.
and they have like a 2% recidivism.
Recidivism, yeah.
Wow,
Yeah.
2%.
Because they're teaching them how to exist beyond the
And
prison.
they have their own private room that they can lock, that nobody else can go into. It's not a cell with,
4
Yeah.
other people, or 3 other people.
yeah.
Okay, so I got some topics, I think we'll just go down the topics and whoever can jump in and answer them, or do you want me to
Okay.
address them to you guys?
I think it'd be good to have a person say, oh,
Okay,
You're the moderator now.
you're the
Oh,
moderator.
yeah.
Well, you know
I
what,
just
we
took
need
over
you to introduce yourself and who you are.
I am Shanda Masta. I am an elected PCO for the Democratic Party. I have been an elected PCO. I led a progressive committee into the Democratic Party as a part of Dem Enter. Saw firsthand the corruption, and we ended up leaving. Every single one of us had to Dem exit within about 2 years, and we're still in the fight, but I'm not sure that the Democratic Party can be reformed, as the corporate stranglehold on it is so intense that the grassroots, I mean, we're making a lot of headway at the local level, I feel, but as far as state levels and national levels, we still have a lot of work to go.
So on that, let me just say, I was elected by a very large margin to the Progressive Caucus Executive Board for membership. And one of the platforms I ran on, or the platform I ran on, was bringing minorities into the Progressive Caucus. Because when I looked out at the Progressive Caucus, there were people that looked like me in the Progressive Caucus. So I wanted to bring people in. But as I was on the inside, and what I was seeing and how I was being treated as a candidate running for office, I couldn't in good conscience try to get people who are not actively involved in the Dem party.
You feel guilty.
I couldn't with good conscience and be able to sleep at night, try to get people to become involved in an
Waste the next year or
organization.
two of your life. Do everything for them. No gratitude will ever be shown.
You know, it's just,
Yeah,
I could not do it.
it's about energy, right?
It is about energy, and I feel like our energies get sucked. It's like almost like the Harry Potter, the what are those things?
Dementors.
The Dementors. Yeah, they suck your soul and all your energy and all your passion right out of you. Like, oh, you're passionate, you want to inspire change? Well, it's gone. You know? So I think it's really important that we do meetings like this where we keep the groups together, the energy that we got from the Bernie Sanders campaign. I mean, ultimately, we always said it wasn't about Bernie, it was about those planks. And it is about those planks. It's about universal health care and college-free, or, you know, tuition-free college, and protecting our environment, you know, and all the things that were basically a Green New Deal, what we've needed since the 80s. But somehow we have to unite the progressive movement, which is crazy because there's so many different splinters of us. There's the Green Party, and then there's the Dementors and the Democratic Socialists of America, and you've got socialists all. But you know, I dealt with every single one of these groups, and we all agree about the same things, and that is the planks. And so that's really, I think we do too much labeling of the Democratic Party, and you're in this and you're doing that, and you're a Dem Exeter and you're a Dem Enter. I'm a progressive and I'm a humanist. And I see people all over our country and all over the world, for that matter, suffering. And I see it is only going to get worse by the policies that we are seeing handed down by the corporate elites. Because let's face it, our whole entire government is nothing but one big corporate elite that's just telling us, well, you know, oh, we're taking your water, that's the way it is. You know, you're not getting clean water, that's just the way it is. But it's going to get worse. So it's going to take grassroots support and coming together, because it is going to get worse, I think, before it's going to get better.
Bernie said it was the people. It
is us.
It is
And
us.
one of the things I used to say, because you and I were both Bernie Sanders delegates, and you went to the national, I stopped at the state level, but I used to always say, this is like a war. And because I'm so used to the military, when whoever is up front has the flag, you know, they have the flag, they're running with the United States flag. If that person gets shot and that person goes down, the next person behind them picks up that flag and they keep going. And I keep saying, we have to pick up that flag and keep going. A revolution does not start and stop with one individual. And we have to keep this revolution going. And I think that's what all of us are doing, just in different ways. And I know for me, my platform is pretty much Bernie Sanders' platform, and a lot of people don't realize, and I didn't until I started doing some research, was that Bernie's platform was actually Martin Luther King Jr. and John F. Kennedy's platform.
Yep.
And they were killed.
Kennedy and FDR.
You know, all of those, you know, but I say those two because those two were killed for this platform.
Absolutely.
And that's my platform. I'm running for the people on that. And so, you know, you keep saying, Shanda, a new Green Deal. A lot of people have no idea what you're talking about. A Green New Deal.
Bernie Sanders platform.
Yeah,
Identical.
it is.
Uh-huh.
It's identical.
Platform.
It's identical.
It's the same thing.
I was very fortunate. I got to spend some time with Jill Stein a couple of years back in Philadelphia, and that really it changed my focus from the Democratic platform that I was so accustomed to sitting on a shelf and collecting dust. And okay, they're planks, but nobody ever supports those planks or works those planks, to a very in-depth, clear understanding of how the monetary system in our government works and how we can change the whole way the system works, and these pack of lies that we've been fed on taxation and inflation and all these words that we've been taught for why we can't pay for all of our kids to go to school, or why we can't pay. But it's strange because we sure can come up with the money for Space Force or, any other military advancement that we need.
Guns, weaponry.
So,
We need to introduce you.
oh yeah, Miss
Oh.
Marie.
I'm the old lady. Marie Trillingham, getting dental implants in Mexico. I love it. Oaxaca's a fabulous place. If you haven't gone, you should.
Well, you're just as
You're a
important.
PCO.
You're just
I'm
as
a
important.
Oh, you're a PCO now.
I'm a PCO of the Democratic Party.
You did enter.
I dem entered, well, I didn't dem enter, I just became
You
a,
got fired up.
I became active in the, always been a Democrat, but I became active in the Democratic Party when Tree grabbed me when I went in there to see what was going on. Come on, let's go do some phone banking. And that was the end of that, phone banking, putting up signs for people, waving signs. She got me doing everything in my old age.
But it keeps you young, Marie. It
It keeps
keeps
you
you
young.
young.
Oh, we
And
definitely need more
I'm
of that.
passionate about
She is
the
passionate.
things
Yes.
that, basically the same things Bernie was passionate about. And all of us, and I have been able to talk to a Democratic membership meeting where someone said that if someone was having a problem running and getting enough votes, make phone calls for them in any state, and if you didn't know anybody there, you just open a phone book and find a name and a phone number and use that to make comments. And I stood up and said, well, I'm not going to do that. I don't think you should be lying. I think you need to do what you need to do, and you have to be honest about it. And if they don't want people talking to them that are out of state, that aren't their people, then you have to honor that. And I had a lot of backup
So,
people that spoke that were hardcore Democrats, but they chased everybody else out of the party practically.
so
That was-
let me make sure that I got this right. They were telling you, even if you don't know the person or even if you don't know their
Right.
policies,
And the guy said,
Just-
oh, that isn't what I said. And some
just
people stood
call.
up and said, yes, that is what he said.
okay? So that kind of, for me, goes to, we as delegates fought really hard for the Washington State platform.
Right.
And I mean, we really had to fight to get the progressive platform that we have for Washington State.
But can I tell you now that it's 2 years later, I look back on it and see how easily we were duped because we were newbies, we were wet behind the ears, we were naive, and we didn't understand the process. And they set the Washington State Democratic Convention 2 years ago up exactly to crush us like that. They allowed us to bicker and argue over things that were of no consequence to anything.
I saw
And
that.
it would take 3 hours to get
Yes.
through one motion, and basically we didn't get to address some of what I felt were the most crucial parts, especially the section on our environment. Washington State is a prized evergreen jewel of the United States. It needs protected, with everything we've got, and as the Democratic Party 2 years ago, we never got to even address it. I think we might have bickered a little bit about a carbon tax, which never came to,
Fruition.
yeah, exactly. And so I now, coming into this, the midterms and looking forward to 2020, I do hope that the progressives that are still dim entered and to come up with a strategy, because we had no strategy. It was so, I've watched the Democratic Party for the last 2 years now pre-rig the next election, and they're doing this by let's superdelegate count, let's talk the way that the rules committees are set up and the things that will be voted on and who's on those committees. It's just like this new bylaw that they wrote at the very top that says, well, if we decide you're not a faithful Dem, then we can kick you out.
A bona fide?
Bona fide purity test, because who is to say what faithful to the Democratic Party looks like? My grandmother was a telephone operator during World War II. She would connect calls to the White House. She was in Rhode Island, and she knew FDR's voice. You know, I grew up with my grandmother crying every time she would tell me about FDR because she felt it from her gut. This man changed the country for us and ultimately changed the world. And they knew that. They loved him. He was beloved by them. So I was instilled to have this democratic pride in me. Well, as I got older, of course, I went through the Gore years. I voted for Gore. I did all that. You know, I faithfully voted for Clinton, even though I was a single mom and I was voting against myself. I was on welfare. I got that cut and taken away from me. And then to come into the Democratic Party after the years of Obama and to be told, you're not a Democrat. Like, what do you mean I'm not a Democrat? My grandmother was a Democrat, my mother was a Democrat, I am a Democrat, and now all of a sudden, because of my ideas, which are the actual ideas of the People's Party,
Yes.
you're the ones who moved. I didn't move. I stayed right where I've always been, and then this party just, you know, has...
They've removed democracy.
They've
from-
removed
Yes.
the democracy from it. And so I feel that, you know, as we go into 2020, if they're going to take the party back, we have to do it now, or we just keep wasting, you know,
Energy.
more
And we
energy.
have to elect progressives in 2018
Yes.
in order to have those progressives in office
Build momentum.
to build momentum and to help more progressives get in 2020 so that we have that power already in, because that's the only way we're going to get the change. And I mean, I'm from Chicago. If you say anything about any party other than Democrat, you're going to get the door slammed in your face.
Right.
You know, and I have a cousin that was a prosecuting attorney in DC, and he was trying to get into the Democratic Party years ago as a Democrat, and he came to the family and told the family and over to the Republican Party because I want to get involved in politics. And our family isolated him and just went off on him so badly. He just dropped the whole thing. So not being a Democrat for me was a no-brainer. But after going through what I've gone through and running for office, and after going through what I've seen from the inside, I can't make myself do it. And I think too, something that really affected me was I won that progressive seat in January, and I was sitting in the meeting, the large meeting, and Tina was speaking in March. I had declared my candidacy for U.S. Senate in February. I was the only one who had declared their candidacy for U.S. Senate in February. And I listened to Tina, you remember that? Stand at the front and say the number one position we have to make sure wins, the most important seat that has to be won is that of Maria Cantwell in 2018. This was in March of 2017. And she announced it and the whole room turned around and looked at me. And then someone pulled on her coattail and she went down and listened and came up and changed the subject. Why would, after what they did to me in 2016, why would I feel comfortable bringing minorities into a party knowing that we go through what we go through on a daily basis, to come into a party that's going to help perpetuate that even more? And I really had a battle with myself for 2 years because I kept thinking, you ran for this, you accepted this, but then at the same time, I can't do this. And I kept having that push and
It's
pull.
tough, right? It's
Yes.
tough. I know. I've lived 1 foot in the party, 1 foot out of the party now for like almost 3 years. And it's a really rough place to be. I support the dim enters. There's a lot of good ones out there. They're making changes, but are they big changes? Are they big enough to affect this coming election? I don't think so. I support the outside groups like Social Assault and, you know, PIP, and there's so many outside ones, and the changes that they're making. And has there been enough change to affect the type of election fraud that we saw 2 years ago? I
I
don't
do.
believe so, but I want Tyler's take on this.
Yes.
Well, remains to be seen. I mean, I think literally today the DNC will vote on superdelegates, but my take is that even coming in the door, they'd already compromised to the degree that I'm questioning whether or not I can even stay in. You know, they came in the door saying superdelegates will still exist, but won't vote in the first round. I mean, that's basically just saying, yeah, we're going to rig it, but we're going to rig it a little bit less and a little bit more quietly.
Yeah, a little bit later in the game.
A little bit, yeah, and that doesn't really cut it, but that doesn't change the fact that I'm still going to support the people on the ground. And my stance is still the same as yours. You know, there's this whole sector of the population that is just done with that. Like, you know, the superdelegates came back in 1984, hilariously. That's my whole life. That's all presidential elections except for one, Jimmy Carter versus Reagan, when I was 3, is the only quote-unquote unrigged presidential election we've had in my entire lifetime. And everybody knows it. We know it. People my age were born with the internet. There's never been a question about this. So what about this huge sector of the population, generations X, Y, and Z, all the colored people in the world? You know, I mean, it's like all of these people are the voice that is desperately needed to bring back balance to the system. How do we do that? That's the question. Is it going to be soon enough? I don't know. I'm playing for that, though. I'm here playing for that.
Speaking of internet, I think a part of keeping up the momentum is being able to freely disseminate information.
Absolutely.
So
And
I
we're
think-
being blocked. That's
And
our
we're
topic
being
I
blocked.
have here. I talk about future of social media and the progressive
Right,
movement.
so we all
How do we
know-
progress when we can't
We
communicate?
all know, we probably, I'm sure we all watch independent
Absolutely.
media. you
Yeah,
know,
absolutely.
And how censored they are,
Mhm.
you know, Google and YouTube, you know, and Facebook. It's a big problem that we're having. So I think a part of the solution is municipal internet, right?
Free internet, yeah. I mean, in so many ways, and in our minds, as well as in our infrastructure. You know, we have to be intelligent enough to circumvent the suppression of our voices, especially when it's blatantly obvious. It is blatantly obvious on
It is
Facebook
blatantly
right now.
Yes.
And so we got to be able to duck around, stick and move, shift over, and communicate another way constantly. And as we reclaim our democracy, as we reclaim our republic, I prefer to say, begin building the infrastructure. You know, net neutrality, free internet for everybody. It's so important.
It is
You know,
so important. Yes.
we will self-educate. We are self-educated. We have self-educated.
Yes, we have.
And it's just going to keep on going. And as long as we can maintain our resolve, we're going to be fine. I mean, soon enough we're not going to avert disaster. We're already plummeting headlong.
We may not all, you know, avert disaster, but we're trying to find a lot of different ways of going around. Just like, I mean, it's obvious that we now have to register and go through all of this if you're a candidate to be able to raise funds on Facebook or to have a fundraiser on Facebook. There's so many things that they're putting out to try to pull us and keep us from being able to get our voices heard. But one of the wonderful things is the young people are continuing to create new ways of us connecting on the internet versus just Facebook. And it's allowing us to be able to get our voices heard and allowing us to be able to get out.
So as progressives, we need to be open to new social media platforms and not get pigeonholed into Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, our everyday ones. You know, there's all these new and upcoming ones like Twitch Twitch, for example, is a great way to live stream that many of us don't even know about, we're not utilizing. Oh, that's where kids go and play video games, you know, but it's not,
They
it's
do
another
have
platform.
they have
Right.
live streaming.
Exactly. And Mixer, there's so many of them that are just now starting to build, where YouTube suppressed our videos so much. I think with Mixer's owned by Amazon, I want to say, but Steam it, yeah. So we just have to learn to evolve with these two. So I want to talk about the poverty report that came out. Is anybody up to speed on the poverty report?
Yeah, it was nasty.
It is nasty.
Yeah.
And Nikki Haley just pretty much denies that it exists.
She resigned from the U.S., from the committee that deals.
Right. So they don't even want to deal with it. No, we don't even recognize that it exists.
How dare they say that we have poverty in the U.S.?
So I saw.
The greatest,
yeah.
you mean the greatest nation on this planet?
Yeah, right.
How can we have any poverty? Give us
So
a
I
break.
heard a number this morning on Channel 13 News, which Western Washington, 13 is the morning news channel, you know, it's a Fox affiliate, and they said there is 250,000 Americans living under the federal poverty level, which for extreme poverty is $12,000 a year. 250,000. Do you believe that? I don't believe that.
I don't believe that
for a second. I believe there's 250,000 just on this side of the bridge, probably.
Maybe
Yeah.
250.
Yes. Or in one,
250, 2,500,000.
that sounds more like
Right,
it.
that's
That
right, and
sounds-
that's more like what the UN report said. I don't remember the number, but it was up
It was
there.
really
It was
high.
very, very high.
Yeah.
And, you know, this is where our platform is so important. You know, I know we all have kids that have kids now. Gigi and I are both grandparents, and I'm watching my children who were unable to obtain an education without going, you know, $60,000, $70,000 in debt. They've done the local colleges, and that's still, you know, $10,000 to do that. But now they're having kids, and they're stuck in these low-wage jobs, and they're trying to pay rent, and they're my kids, just this last week, they called me up and said, well, thank God for the food bank, because
Yeah.
they kept us in food
That's why I
system.
don't have children.
Right, exactly. And when our own government is denying, you know, these problems like our employment reports, come on, has anybody believed an employment report in 10 years?
I mean, let me put it this way. If you've never been on unemployment,
Right.
then you can believe the employment reports. But if you've ever been on unemployment, then you understand those employment reports are hogwash.
Well, how easy is it to be fired? How easy is it to be denied employment because you were fired?
Oh, well, it's pretty
Not
standard.
necessarily as easy.
You can fight it, but
You can fight it.
the government's got this great scam where they draw out the unemployment approval system, and they do this by design. And they say, okay, go ahead and apply, and we'll send you some money. So then they send you money, I don't know, they say you're unemployed for 6 weeks. So they give you, which is a minute amount, and maybe they give you $6,000 in those 6 weeks, which is really high. They don't give you that much, it's probably half that, 35. And then, so a year later, they go, well, wait a minute, we heard you left your job because you were sick, so you don't technically qualify. Now you got to give us that money back, and we want interest on all of that. And I know numerous people, numerous, and I've had it happen to me, but I have seen it happen. Where all of a sudden they get a letter in the mail, and they want the unemployment security, $12,000,
Yeah. And you have the
$15,000.
power to freeze your bank account.
Yeah.
And
They take
just
all your money.
Just fucking take it.
They can do whatever they want to you, and people don't realize that these government, I don't even know, they're like gang thugs, that they can come at you and just destroy your entire life over whatever they think. Yeah, you can go through an appeal process and with a judge on a phone who's going to say, well, no, I'm siding with, you
How
pay it
much
back.
energy does that take?
Oh. But this happens, it's not just unemployment, that's just an example. We see this happening with child support for men. This one's very close to my heart because, I was a single mother of 3. I raised my kids on my own. I actually went to a judge and asked him to lower my ex's child support. I knew it was unobtainable, the amount that they had sentenced him to, like $1,200 a month. No way he was going to be able, he was going to lose his driver's license. It would have just made his life snowball out of control. And he knew that. but I watch men all around me that are working low-wage jobs. So you take a man and you give him a job for $12 an hour, but he has 2 kids from an ex-wife who's living okay, you know, she's married again, whatever, she's got income from both her and her new husband. But they take half of that man's wage, so $1,200 now becomes $600, and then the state and government takes their tax out. This man's literally living on $400 a pay period, $800 a month. And if that is not discouraging, depressing, what is, and this is
Why would you
happening,
stick around?
this is happening to hundreds of thousands of men throughout the country right now.
Yes.
And then they end up in jail.
And they end up in
They
jail, they give up, what is the point? I'm just working for $4 an hour, so why should I even try? I mean, there's got to be some way of looking at child support and our judicial system and how they're collecting it, because, you know, you don't pay for 6 months, you've lost your license, you're going straight to
That's
jail.
where basic income for everybody.
Right, where
comes
basic
in.
income comes in.
And it follows the kid, it follows the parents.
A caregiver basic income would kind of assuage that.
A caregiver, their basic income is nothing.
Right.
Right.
And if they go through an organization that's licensed, they get less than half of what that organization gets, and they do all the work.
Right.
Right.
I know about it. I spent 4 months at my aunt and uncle's while my aunt and uncle were dying. With
So,
caregivers.
do we, you know, AI is coming. We know AI is not coming. It's here.
Right.
And we just don't even realize it yet.
Right.
Most of the population is asleep to how much we interact with AI all day long.
Right.
Tell people what AI is.
AI is artificial intelligence. AI is, hey Siri, will you send a text?
Yes.
She's sending a
So-
text, you know. AI is going to replace a huge base of our workforce. Period. It's going to. It's already doing it. And we're not talking about McDonald's jobs, we're talking jobs
Talking
that
about the cars.
everything,
Everything.
cars, truck drivers, teachers. I mean,
Yeah, the driverless cars, that's more
Right.
artificial intelligence.
right.
Yes.
It is. And so you know, when we were in Chicago, we talked with a group that had embarked on a study on universal basic income. And they gave these people, do you remember them? They gave them $1,800 a month. And they followed them around and they tested, or they studied them. Because the misconception is if we give people just free money,
They won't want to do anything.
they're not going to want to do anything, and they will just spend it on crap. You know, they'll go out and they'll
Drugs.
buy drugs and booze and toys and video games, and they won't actually pay their bills. But what the study found was that no, they actually paid their bills, and they were freed up to pursue, I don't want to call it their dreams, but things that were more of an interest to them.
Yeah.
And when you're passionate about something and you enjoy what
Right.
you're doing, you'll give it more time, you'll give it more energy, you'll give it more 110% of yourself, you know. And so basically it encouraged people to seek out the type of jobs that they actually wanted, not just take that base job just so that they had an income coming in.
Yeah.
And so many
And
people get
create
redded in
new
that.
jobs,
Right,
too.
right. And so many people get redded in those, you know, $12 an hour jobs. Well, if I leave to go pursue my dream of, you know, auto design or something, then they're stuck there. They don't get that opportunity.
So I have a question with the AI,
Artificial intelligence.
artificial intelligence. What about cybersecurity?
You know, cybersecurity is something that we don't talk about at all as a country.
Yeah, we don't.
Other
And-
than the Russians did it, which is
You know-
hilarious because
And I think we really need to start looking at, I was talking with John with True Progressives.
Uphill.
No, not John Uphill. Oh my goodness, why can't I think of his
John Lancelot.
John Lancelot, yes,
Lancelot.
I do too, and he's in school, and
He's doing great.
yes, he is. And we were talking about it, and he said no one is talking about cybersecurity.
No.
But cybersecurity is something we need to be talking about. Because what if, I mean, everything is going to the internet or to online, if the Russians are able to break in.
Which they didn't and they can, which is the funny
Okay,
thing.
but what about our everyday lives?
Well,
What about the military? What?
part of that conversation is security from our government.
Right.
Well, absolutely. I mean, we got to talk about security from every possible angle at that point. I mean,
I just
the
wanna-
world is all, one world order is coming and we got to figure out how we're going to do it in
Right.
an intelligent way.
Well,
That's what it
well,
boils down
with
to.
so many people from the military complex going into our government,
Right.
in the House and Senate and governors and.
Oh, yeah, we did have a very
We've got
high number
Huge
run.
problem.
You're right, we had like 32 intel agents run for positions across the country in the last election.
Oh.
Former CIA, former FBI.
And we've got a bunch of them already in.
Right.
Like,
Yeah, the government is already run by the
Fair
military
amount.
industrial complex.
Yeah.
And that doesn't have to be a totally bad thing. It just needs to be balanced out with
Right.
the hearts and minds of the good people of the country. I mean, there is a place in our world for that mindset. That is part of our mindset, part of my mindset. It's just that it's out of balance. and
It
it's-
is out of
Way out of
Absolutely.
balance.
Capitalism has to have the balance of socialism in order to make it workable, one or the other,
Right.
obvious. And that's,
It's
oh,
too much.
socialism's so bad. Well, capitalism's so bad when it's lopsided too. You
Yes,
know,
and we need the socialism because the capitalism is so
It's so
out of
unfettered right
balance.
now.
Well,
Yes.
Just be, like, I think a lot of people, they marry free trade and capitalism together.
Yeah, there's a lack of understanding there. We are not one or the other. We are not a capitalist country and not a socialist country
Right.
the other way around. We're definitely both, and it's it's like that game of Monopoly, when you get to the end and one person's got all the money and the rest of us are just running around the board
Until we run out.
wishing we'd land on free parking,
Right.
but really just waiting for the end of the game.
Keep landing it.
Yes.
And we gotta reset that because it's not working. It's
And
not-
it hasn't
it's not fixed.
been working. And what is it, how they saying the top down?
Trickle
The
down
money
economics.
trickles down
Trickle down
economics.
maybe.
They
You
could
know.
go down a drop or two.
Right.
So I'm reading this book right now and where it talks about inequality of wealth. And so if you look at corporate, and they asked Republicans and Democrats and independents where they thought, how they thought that fluctuation was. If you're looking at the corporation, executives in corporations, let's say making 25,000, and an entry-level labor person making 11,000. That's a 25-to-1, okay? So they were talking to people, and both sides, I don't think anyone was over 35,000. They were really right in the ballpark. So they thought it would be like 35-to-1, okay? I think there were some that were 42-to-1.
You're the growler. That's a Navy growler going over.
Wow.
Sorry to interrupt.
But the reality is 829-to-1.
Yeah.
Wow.
Why is their time worth so much more?
All right, right.
And without those who are the boots on the ground dealing with the customers, they wouldn't have anything.
Right.
Yeah.
So,
So, okay, on the opposite spectrum of the whole politics that's going to change the world, I tend to subscribe a lot to what people like Chris Hodges has to say, which we are going to see a complete breakdown of our society before we're going to see it build back up. And our job is going to be to recognize where we can help other human beings, feeding people,
Yes.
Right.
Yes.
medical supplies,
yes.
transportation of moving that stuff, moving
Like the
water.
Black Panthers.
Right,
Yes.
exactly how,
Yes.
and organizing at that level. And I try to subconsciously always keep that in mind as I'm networking through the progressive movement, like, okay, maybe 2 years from now, this connection will be somebody that I'll help get water into, Flint, Michigan, or, something like that. So I hope, and I always encourage other people to have that networking in mind, that we might be networking to actually save lives
Yes.
and God knows when, you
Yeah,
know?
well, we can do both. And, and
Right.
if you really think into the logical, back to the now conclusion, it's all the same work.
It is.
It's
It
knowing
is.
who's around, it's knowing who you can trust, and that's a real great, a gap bridging, you know, especially when I have conversations with people who are kind of far right. You know, we always come to this conversation of apocalypse, and I'm
The
like,
far
hey,
right, they're really all over it.
yeah, no, it's crazy, and I'm like, okay, you know, I want to know where you're at. Let's get to know each other. Let's get on the same page because we're going to need us down, and we're going to need each other if we can salvage this mess
Right.
and kind of blossom into this, you know, into this ideal self-governance idea. We're still going to need each other. So let's just work to, you know, note differences noted, and let's move forward with,
Right.
with that in mind.
And I find myself watching a lot of independent Republican media. It really is beneficial to know what they're thinking and where they're at. And they're not that far
Yes.
off from us. Yeah, they've got some core issues that we don't all agree on, like abortion and the truly standard conservative ideas and values. But for the most part, we all see the same thing. We see a government that's out of control, corporate oligarchs that
Yeah.
just are a free run of our country right now.
Most of the
And-
time, the argument that they give is like, oh, the government's too big. But what they don't understand is the government isn't run by us.
Right.
That's right.
Right. Well, and the libertarians are right there too, you know. One of my best friends is a libertarian, and they just, I understand it. I totally understand.
Okay, I have to do this. I was given this last night, and it was a poll of likely 2016 voters. And it's from the Progressive Change Institute, so people can look it up. And they have a lot of issues on here. And it's allow government to negotiate drug prices, give students the same low interest rates as a big bank, universal pre-kindergarten, fair trade that protects workers, the environment, and jobs, end tax loopholes for corporations that ship jobs overseas, end gerrymandering. Okay, progressive ideas, okay? And so they asked Democrats, Republicans, Independents, okay, in 2016, okay? And green stands for they support all of these things. And red means they oppose it. Can I get you to bring the camera in on this one a little bit? And yellow means they're neutral, and black means there's no response. I want you all to look at this.
Yeah.
I mean, it's really showing that the people across the board agree on
Well-
just about everything on here.
All this has to do with, you know, corporate power.
Yes,
There was I think there was a Princeton study that said we have a statistically insignificant amount of a say in our legislation.
yes,
So that's-
yes. And this also should help us as candidates running, because this lets us know people are on target with pretty much everything. The problem is how we get there. Okay?
The vehicle.
Yes, the vehicle we use to get there, what they want the outcome or how they want to see it happen. That's where the issues come into play. And they want less government. And in a way, we want less government, and in a way, as a black woman, I'm somewhat scared of less government, because our government has not been nice to minorities.
Right.
You know, and we're looking at, for history, you know, they break up the families, and they sold the slave, they had slavery, they sold the children
It all.
away from their families, and
Corporations are
then,
not gonna do a better job than government.
thank you,
Well,
you know.
It depends on your definition of government, right? If we were truly a democracy,
Which we are supposed to be a republic, not a democracy.
but there's still elements of democracy within a republic. You're supposed, your representative is supposed to be beholden to the constituency.
That's right.
So there are elements of democracy within that. But our government is not run by the people.
Correct.
That's the problem.
Mhm.
That's the big thing that people are not understanding, is that they think that our government is by the people, but it's not. It's by the corporations that give money, that lobby, and then they get more power because of that lobbying. And then that lobbying gets them more money.
Yes.
Absolutely, we'll talk about that. In your race, Derek Kilmer, the growler that just went overhead, we know how much money the military gives to Derek Kilmer's reelection. Therefore, he has locked down the North Olympic Peninsula for the Navy. And the Navy is allowed to expand. Right now, I hear they just passed that they can annex properties adjacent to military bases down here in Washington State, and the state has to pay for those properties. Yeah, so even if they're not going to do anything with that property, they can just decide, we want that property, we're not going to develop it, but we want it. So basically,
They can take your house.
they can take your house, they can take any adjacent property, and as they keep growing and taking the property, they'll end up with it all. But, we see over the Olympic Peninsula, we have the growlers going overhead every day. They come by first thing in the morning, they're through the day, and at night. But this electromagnetic warfare training that they say they're doing, we're starting to see repercussions of it on the Olympic Peninsula now. Back in January, we had a large amount of old-growth trees taken down in Lake Quinault Forest. And it just happened to be the exact same grid as where the military had said that they were going to be doing this electromagnetic warfare training. They had stated that that's where they were going to be. And the trees in that area were old growth, huge firs. They literally have been twisted and just ripped right out of the bases. I mean, it's almost mind-blowing.
Staggering.
We've got scientists out there now that can't even explain it. And they try to chalk it up to a microburst. Oh, well, there was a microburst, some winds came through, and they twisted these old growth trees and just ripped them right out of the ground.
Come on.
Exactly. And so we don't know, and we were allowed a 7-day public comment time for this.
Oh.
And what the Navy did was
Yeah.
they went all the way out to Forks, and they dropped off a proposed plan at the
Right.
library, and
Right.
they left it out there for a week,
Telling no one.
telling nobody.
Yeah.
And then when we found out, I'd say, oh, well, we gave you guys a public comment, it was out there, you have plenty of
I
time
know
to
all about
research
that
it.
from Ohio.
Right, that's what they've been doing to us on the Olympic Peninsula.
Okay, so you know about it in Ohio.
Oh, yeah.
But you didn't know about it in the
No,
peninsula
I meant that
area.
process, the process
Okay.
where like, we're gonna allow public comment, and we're gonna drop it off where no one's gonna know where it's at, and we're
Right.
not gonna tell anybody where it's at, and we're just gonna hope that everybody finds out about it.
And I think that's some of what happened with the LNG plant
Oh, yeah.
in Tacoma.
Oh, yeah, they
Yes.
they stole that land straight.
They-
straight stole that.
But see, while we were going through in 2016, one of those midnight and screaming no dapple, we were really heavy into the no dapple, weren't you, Tyler, as well?
You were
Into
there.
the no dapple. And so we were heavy into that, and right in the midst of this, they did a midnight bill for military money. And I just happened to look and saw that in that bill, it gave permission to take more land away from Native Americans. I'm like, how in the world,
You're sitting here talking,
in a military bill, do they have the right to take away? People really need to start looking at these bills
Yeah.
and seeing all the pork
But
that's
how-
being put in
how
them.
ironic is it that people are sitting here talking about putting up border walls and keeping immigrants out, when most of us are immigrants to this land. And we keep
Yes,
taking the land from the natives of this land.
yes. You know what? This has been an awesome conversation, and we really need to do it again. But we're gonna have to wrap up because we know people's attention span doesn't go but very long.
Let's do
And
our-
so let's end with introductions and how people can reach the candidates
By all means.
online and go from there. Well, you're not running, Marie, and
I'm unopposed.
you're unopposed, so you have your seat. Congratulations, we need you in there. I'm Jennifer Gigi Ferguson. I'm running for U.S. Senate again. My website, which is being redone right now, and hopefully they said it'll be ready on the 2nd. It was the 22nd, and I made them do a lot of things to it. So it's now the 2nd, but it will be Gigi for Senate. That's GIGI-FOR Senate.US, us, or United States, however you want to put it. My Twitter is at Fergus Gigi or at Gigi for Senate. And my Facebook is Gigi Ferguson for U.S. Senate. And so you can capture me on Facebook, you inbox me, ask me questions. I or someone always answers back. Thank you.
I'm Tyler Vega. I'm running for the United States House of Representatives, District 6, this district, the Olympic Peninsula. My Facebook is facebook.com/Vega in the House. And my website is my name, tylervega.com. And my Twitter, which I rarely use, is at tyvega4 Congress. And you can find me. I mean, my cell phone is published in the voters pamphlet, so please don't be bashful.
Franklin Joseph, Cortez, Wall Brown, 2 L's. I'm pretty sure I'm the only one on Facebook. I don't have a website. I do have a Twitter. Most of my things are Wall Brown F. If you want to try to find me anywhere else, that's where I'll be. And PCO 101 here in Gardner, wonderful Gardner, running for PCO.
So
I'm going to help you out.
Oh, you
So-
are? Okay.
we want to thank everyone for joining us tonight. And when you look at this, and hopefully we've given you something to think about and something to research so that when you vote, you're voting educated. Because that's one of the most important aspects of voting. We want people to vote, but we want people to vote educated.
Right.
And so, from all of us, I think, to all of you, thank you and good night.